Okay, good evening. Good evening, everybody. Mike Desjardins, Manager of Employee Wellness here at Griffin Health. We are here at our Center for Healthy Living, located at Quarry Walk, 300 Main Street in Oxford. We are doing another segment of our Healthy Eating series. Today we are featuring a topic titled the lowly radish. It's summertime and we like to get creative with our salads and more importantly, different ways to get fiber intake, right? We all need a certain amount of fiber to help us with our digestion and to avoid things like constipation and upset stomachs. And of course, it helps with weight loss as well. So I am, again, proud to have with us a guest speaker tonight. We have Dr. Deepali Jain, who's here. She's one of Griffin Health's general surgeons. And then we have Caty Poole with us, who those of you who have watched our series are very familiar with Caty and her role with the local farms and what she brings to the table every month for us. So I am going to turn the mic over to Dr. Jain, and she will get started on her presentation on fiber and how we can benefit from all having a little bit more into our diet. So thanks again for coming, Dr. Jain.
Thank you for having me. All right. Thank you all for joining us. Good evening. Just very briefly about myself. As Mike mentioned, I'm Deepali Jain. I'm a general surgeon here at Griffin for we were just talking about a year now. And so been really great to join the team here. And probably not typical to think of having a general surgeon maybe involved in these types of things, to which I refute that. I think that, so much of what I deal with in my practice and general surgeons do, of course, is just comprehensive health management anyway, but also we're dealing with a lot of digestive concerns, a lot of GI tract conversations, whether it's gallbladders or colons or hemorrhoids or all those types of things. And so I'll be honest with you, because it's a personal passion of mine and because it comes up all the time, I'm talking about fiber till I'm blue in the face every single day with just about every patient who comes into my clinic. And so personal, passion project of mine to get all of us eating more fiber. And, I do have some background and training in bariatric and metabolic surgery as well. That's not a part of my practice here at Griffin right now, but certainly an area of interest. So I love food. I love to cook. I love to talk about food and think about food. And so that's why I told Mike that I wanted to show up and talk about my favorite topic in the world, which is fiber. So fiber is having a moment, which we're excited about. Hopefully it's drowning out a little bit of the high protein noise. Not that protein isn't important, but most people get plenty, despite what you may be hearing out there. And so where we really struggle in our kind of European-centric, American-centric diets is actually in fiber. And by and large, I think it's like 90 to 95% of people don't get near enough fiber in their diets, and probably by like half. So that's why it's super important to talk about, super fun to talk about, and this is a great season for it because the, skip to the end, the overarching message that I'm hoping you'll leave with today is eat more plants. Like that's going to be the number 1, 2, 3, 4 goal here. And so I don't like when I'm talking with friends, family, patients to talk about things to cut out or reduce. I think there's so much noise around get rid of this, reduce that, cut out this is bad, this is cheating, whatever. Let's talk about what we should increase, what we should add, what we should bring in, and inherently, by default, that's going to crowd out maybe some of the things that aren't adding as much benefit in the diet. But generally speaking, it's going to make you feel better, eat better, poop better. Yay. We love all of that. So fiber is a natural component found in foods that are plants. It is not found in animal products at all. You'll hear we talk about kind of 2 categories, insoluble and soluble fibers. In general, I don't get real hung up on that. It has to do with kind of how much they dissolve in water or not. Many foods that are considered high fiber foods are going to have some component of both. If we want to kind of simplify it, we'll talk about soluble fibers tend to be more your fruits and veg. Insolubles tend to be more your complex grains and starches and things. And so Fiber ultimately is a complex carb. It's a polysaccharide, which is sort of a bunch of sugar-type molecules put together, but it is considered non-digestible. And so what that means when it comes to things like people who are scared of carbs or blood sugar management and diabetes and these things is you don't see those quick blood sugar spikes, those glycemic index increases, things like that. And so let me see what we have on the next one. So I'll leave this up as we keep talking so you can kind of keep seeing some of those examples. But ultimately, what we're aiming for goal-wise is about 30 grams a day. So I think we have a chart with some. Oh, you have that other handout. That's the one that has the numbers on it, Mike. That's okay. That we're going to talk about at some point. But you'll find there's lots of resources out there in terms of numbers of how many grams are in this and that. And generally speaking, again, I don't like people to get very caught up in counting everything, right? The idea is going to be if you're adding lots of plants into the diet and finding ways to sneak them in, which is what Caty's going to talk a lot about, is where we can keep adding things and building on those building blocks, we're going to get to that 30 grams over time. What people are afraid of when they hear about fiber is bloating, gas, discomfort. Oh, cauliflower makes me really gassy, these kinds of things. Fibery foods make me really gassy. And it can happen. Part of that is the just kind of your gut's readiness for them or your gut's being used to them. One of the things that there's a lot of research into these days is gut microbiome. You're hearing all about good gut bacteria and all these things. And what we have found is as our fiber sources have narrowed, as our food diversity has reduced, that gut microbiome and the number of bacteria and number of different organisms being found in the gut lining has also reduced. And so those things really do go hand in hand. As we increase the diversity of plants that we're eating and the number of different types of plants that we're eating, those gut microbiomes start to become more robust as well. And so that tolerance for fiber kind of continually goes up. So my guidance and recommendations with people is don't turn around tomorrow and show up with like 6 bowls of oatmeal and 10 smoothies and be like, I'm eating all the fiber I can find today, because you're going to be miserable, you're going to be bloated, you're going to be uncomfortable. Start slow, build up, let your gut start to acclimate, and as you kind of build up on it, that comfortability will come with time. In general, the reason we love fiber and talk about it all the time is, so number one, most kind of apparent or readily seen and noticed is in gut motility and stool quality and constipation, right? Nobody, who doesn't love coming out on a Tuesday night and talking about their poops, but this is what general surgeons do. That's what happens when you invite us. Constipation is a huge problem. Hemorrhoids are a problem. Diverticulitis is a problem. Colon cancer is a problem. Colon polyps are a problem. And all of these things kind of start to link back to our fiber intake, the quality of our gut motility, the quality of kind of how that movement happens. So what happens with fiber is it slows the digestion, and not in a bad way. All our really processed foods, our sugary foods, things like that, those kind of fly through our system. They don't spend a lot of time getting processed, getting absorbed, and that's where we see some of these issues with gut biome and things like that. With fiber, your gut has to take some time to process and digest those things. It tends to kind of allow for that movement to happen more slowly. It improves the nutrient absorption in the gut. It improves what's called the short chain fatty acids, which are the fuel that feeds the colon cells themselves. But you don't care about any of that. You care about if it's easy to poop. Guess what? If you eat enough fiber and you drink enough water with it, it improves kind of stool bulk. So we talk about soft, easy bulk rather than kind of watery, loose stools, hard, tight stools, whatever it is. So that all helps with straining, with pushing, with hemorrhoids, with fissures, with all the horrible things that you don't want to come see me for. So that thing that you hear about. On the kind of less obvious side of where is fiber beneficial, this is where there's just an enormous body of research that's continuing to expand. And so what we're seeing is that fiber probably plays a huge role in so much chronic disease management. So whether it's blood sugar stability and insulin sensitivity, whether it's cardiovascular disease risk improvement, certainly we'll talk a little bit about weight management and satiety and those kinds of things. And then there is some, I don't like going too far down the road of like chronic inflammation, and I know inflammation is a big buzzword these days, but even some of these inflammatory factors and IBS and things like that, people do see some improvement with some of the inflammatory markers with a better, higher fiber diet. When you talk about weight management, there certainly is some data and improving data around that. I would say right now the recommendation isn't around like, oh yes, if you increase your fiber, you will lose weight. That being said, improved satiety, some of the, or is basically feeling fuller longer, feeling more satisfied after you eat, some of the kind of slower propulsion of the digestion, improved absorption of the nutrients, the inherent increased water intake that you have when you're eating a fiber-rich diet. All of those things probably improve or probably will lead to decreased food, caloric intake for some people, right? Because as you've felt, if you're eating, all our favorite, the chips or the sugary foods or the processed foods, or even, a slice of white bread toast versus a bowl of oatmeal or even whole grain toast, when you feel hungry again, how long that feels satisfying, there is a difference. And so what we find is with these more fiber-rich foods, whether it's whole grains, more plant-based foods, or more vegetables, more nuts and grains, all these things, that does tend to lead to longer satisfaction, improved kind of steadiness of hunger spikes and blood sugar spikes and things like that. So where I recommend kind of adding fiber to folks, so how do I do it? You've convinced me that I want more fiber in my diet. Again, I would say start slow, build up slowly. I'm very liberal with recommending fiber supplements to people, and part of that is because, yes, we want to get it through diet. Katie's going to give us a ton of good information on doing that, but it is an effort. It's a shift in how you're cooking, how you're eating, how you're shopping, and so building those things on over time, using a supplement to start with, whether it's psyllium husk or Metamucil or Benefiber or what have you, and then slowly transitioning over to all food is ultimately what we want to do. So I have no problem with people using some supplementation initially. Places to add it in, nuts, handful of nuts here and there, great fiber source, good protein, good healthy fats, things like a sprinkle of flaxseed onto the, or chia seeds, hemp seeds, things like that, that have good fiber. Those can be kind of added into your soups, into your smoothies, so into baked goods, sort of hidden away, but bringing some nutrient things. Choosing whole grains, whole flours, mixing of flours. So maybe you're doing some baking at home and, these muffins call for all-purpose flour. Well, if you split that with half spelt flour or half whole grain flour, now you're kind of bringing in some of those better nutrients. So a lot of different ways to do that. But ultimately, add more plants to the diet, bring in the water with it, add more diversity of different types of foods to the diet, and over time that fiber content will naturally increase and start to maybe crowd out some of the foods that aren't bringing as much to the party.
So, Dr. Jain, we did have a question.
Please.
And it was regarding insulin spikes.
Yes.
So the question was, how does a high fiber diet affect potential insulin spikes?
So I'm not an endocrinologist. I'm not a diabetes manager. So I don't, and each individual is going to have different pathway on that. What I will say is, yes, as a person who is managing blood sugars or diabetes on a diet, seeing me talk about all these carbs and all these fruits and things can be a little nerve-wracking, and I certainly understand that. Obviously, first and foremost, work with your diabetes nutritionist, your diabetic educators, your endocrinologist, your physician, whoever is working with you on that in terms of tailoring a specific diet. That being said, what I'll say is things like, call it, wheat berries versus cereal in a box, or whole wheat toast or oatmeal versus a slice of white bread toast. You're going to see different levels of blood sugar spikes with that. I could go into a whole nother speech about flours and grains and what happens with our flour, but the idea is that these processed white flours, kind of sifted flours that we get most often available to us, have the bran and the endosperm removed, and that's where a lot of the nutrient qualities of grains are. So grains inherently are not bad foods, are the way we've branded them, but we have stripped the nutritional value out of them when we're using these kind of white flours. And so flours that bring in some of the bran, or foods that bring in the whole grain or more of the grain, are going to be a little bit more stable in blood sugar management versus that kind of white flour and white grains are going to be sort of just the sugar spike portion of it. So there should be some ease there. In terms of fructose and fruit management, generally I'm a fruit lover, but of course I will say anybody who's managing blood sugar should work with their diabetes provider on making sure that those things kind of align. Generally speaking, your vegetables and your beans and your nuts and those kinds of things are going to be really blood sugar friendly. So those things really shouldn't cause too many issues from that standpoint.
That's great. I think that answered it pretty.
And Dr. Jain, would you say that incorporating the recommended daily amounts of fiber helps slow the absorption of sugar into the system? Is there research behind that?
So I think it can, right? It balances some of that. I wouldn't say like, oh, as long as you're eating fiber, have as much ice cream as you want. It probably doesn't. I wouldn't translate it to mean that. But listen, I'm always pro ice cream. But I think the slower transit time with how those grains are being processed. So where we see issues with blood sugar spikes, as you mentioned, is foods that kind of fly through the system, that get processed through the stomach and the small intestines very quickly, are going to tend to have a quick blood sugar increase.
Uptake,
and spike that blood sugar without that sustained piece. And it doesn't give kind of your body enough time to respond with the insulin and all these things. And so with foods like whole grains, like more fiber-rich things that are slower transit through the intestine, that gives your body more time to appropriately accommodate with the insulin responses and regulation. And that is my, very, very non-endocrinologist version of that. But yes, I think using, I know we're much less familiar in our dietary patterns of using things like millet and farro and all these things, and even in countries, my family comes from India, where millet was always a part of a staple grain, that has gone away, and now everybody's there's a big push to bring it back, and millet was the grain of the year last year, or whatever that big push was from the international community. So, I think all of these types of programs and the type of work that Caty and Mike are doing to kind of promote that is to start to say, listen, there's a lot more out there than what we see on our shelves. We can start to integrate other types of foods and bring those benefits, and hopefully get some management through that. I love this talk this time of year because there is just an absolute wealth of beautiful plant product all around us, right? So I drove past a farm stand on my way here just now, right? It's the time to try different things. Caty's going to talk about all the different millions of varieties of radishes there are, right? And so there's so many different flavors and colors and shapes and sizes and different things to try, and this is such a great time to do it. And so that excitement of newness, right? As humans, we love new things. We love exploration. So that excitement of just trying something new says, okay, now I've added a different color and a different plant to my diet, and that is going to start to snowball into the next thing and the next thing. And so, it all really plays together. You've heard about increasing the number of plants. You've heard about increasing the number of grains.
Yeah.
All of these things all tie together to this fiber conversation.
Everybody talks about the different types of nuts that are good.
Yeah.
Like is it walnuts and almonds? What about cashews, peanuts, peanut butters?
Yeah.
So I'll reiterate the question for those on Facebook. So you're asking about the nut phase, right? Everyone's talking about different nuts, and specifically walnuts and peanut butter and how that falls into.
He wants to eat peanuts instead of walnuts, and he wants
Yeah.
he wants me to tell him he can still have peanut butter and that it doesn't have to be walnut butter. Yeah. Listen, I'm a peanut butter girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a peanut butter girl. I'm with you. Yeah.
So the question surrounds the is peanut butter good for you, and what about cashews and different nuts? So
Yeah. Right. So this gets a little bit to my personal, philosophy around foods, which is that, we're not going to target good ingredients and best ingredients and bad ingredients and this and that. I think that nuts in general are a healthy food and a healthy snack. I advise, keeping the portion kind of moderate. So they talk about a quarter cup, a handful here and there. I see a lot of people with diverticulitis. There's been a lot of, we used to really harp on no nuts, no seeds, no popcorn, none of this stuff, right? With that, a lot of that has gone away. What I'll tell people, especially after a bout of diverticulitis, is I don't want you to sit down with the whole bowl of mixed bar nuts and down that in one time, but a handful of nuts, once or twice throughout the day as a healthy snack is certainly fine. Again, this is where I get into diversity. I don't care if you eat peanuts and cashews. I think those are both great. Are walnuts better? They certainly have good marketing. I don't really, I don't know. Yes, there's some heart health benefits, but there's also a lot of noise that comes around, like this ingredient is best and this one is less good and this is that. I think nuts are a great source of fiber. I think they're a good source of, plant-based protein to some extent. They do come with a little bit of a higher fat load, but not necessarily a bad fat. Again, we get into some of those emotional terms. Walnuts are a good source of omega-3s and things like that. Those are good fats to have. That's fine. I say throw them all in the mix, right? Today you had a couple of walnuts, tomorrow it's peanuts. I don't think that one or the other is bad. In general, what I always am going to recommend is diversity of mixing it up. I'll never tell you can't have peanut butter or you can't have peanuts, but incorporate in moderation, and B, kind of incorporating a mix of things. Katie's going to talk about pumpkin seeds, and those are a great source of a lot of good nutrients. When we're in the fiber conversation, chia seeds are like a fantastic source of fiber and a really easy thing to kind of sneak into different places to use as, a fun little these chia puddings that you'll see out there and all these different things. So there's a lot of fun ways to incorporate different ingredients. Have your peanut butter, but have some of this and some of that as well, right? I think, again, it's the diversity of bringing lots of different ingredients to the table.
I stopped eating muffins for breakfast and stuff, but I started going with peanut butter and jelly on a whole wheat multi-grain bread or something. I don't know if is that bad also, as opposed to,
I don't like to get into bad and good and all these things. I think certainly, am I going to favor a piece of whole grain toast with some nut butter on it over, a packaged muffin? Probably, yeah, because you have a lot more control over what ingredients you're putting into your body at that point, right?
Does it make you feel satisfied? Is another important thing.
It should keep your hunger at bay longer, George.
Right. You've got a healthy fat, you've got some whole grains, you've got some fruit in there.
So that falls right into what we talked about, slower digestion. It keeps your blood sugar levels regulated for a longer period of time.
So that's a great example or experiment for us. What have you found as the difference since you switched up that breakfast? What have you noticed?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly the premise.
Yep.
Yeah, even for myself, I've trialed it, and I've had, different things, right? So breakfast is that food. I've always used to say breakfast can be forgiving because you can load up on breakfast because then you're going to have the whole day to burn it. That's not always true in the sense of if you have something that's higher sugar at breakfast, I find that I'm craving something around 10:30, 11, as opposed to if I had some oatmeal and I'll go into the cafe and I'll get a thing of oatmeal, and I do sprinkle a little bit of brown sugar. I can't lie on that, but I do some nuts on it too, and sometimes I'll throw blueberries on it, and that definitely keeps me regulated until noon, 12:30 easily. Whereas if I don't have something in that consistency, I'm finding that I'm getting hungry 10:30, 11, and I'm looking for a snack.
So what I love about things like that, the oatmeal, the toast, a bowl of yogurt, even a salad, is it gives you this foundational place to start. You know the nutritional value of where you've started, and now you can just keep adding good stuff to that, right? So you take that bowl of oatmeal, you take that toast, you add a few blueberries, you add a few nuts, you add a sprinkle of, maybe it's pumpkin seeds, maybe it's hemp seeds, maybe it's flax powder, whatever, something. And all you're doing is increasing the number of plants, increasing the flavor, adding all these different layers of goodness to it. Whereas when you have that muffin out of a package, it's a muffin out of a package, and it's down the hatch before you even tasted it or thought about what happened.
It goes good with coffee, right? It goes right down,
Right.
but it's loaded with sugar.
Right.
So.
And then 10 minutes later, you're looking for something again, right?
Now, like when I make a salad,
Yeah.
I'll cut up some chicken, I'll stir fry the chicken with some salad, and I put berries on it, strawberries, blueberries,
It's good, right?
So those of you watching, George is commenting on how he's getting into adding some proteins like chickens into his salads and some fresh fruit, which again is hitting all those key parts, right? You're getting a little bit of protein, and one of the slides had the Harvard Healthy Plate on there, and it talks about portions, right? I don't recall what slide it was. It was there. There it is.
Yeah.
So you'll see, what we're finding is the old pyramid, right, that we used to always look at. We don't look to that pyramid anymore. We're looking more towards the healthy eating plate, where the majority of your plate is vegetables. You've got your fruits, whole grains, and then a healthy protein. Essentially, your salad's hitting all those if you think about it. So
The world of nutrition has gotten very noisy because you have to draw people's attention one way or another, right? And so it is this flashing sign of this is the ingredient of the week and this is the diet pattern of the week. And the reality is whenever you see that, you see it in fitness, and Mike can talk to you about exercise and those things, you see it in eating. Most often or even in like finance and how you manage your money, most often what that means is the more shiny objects and the more, flashiness there is around it, it's because the actual answer or the real pattern is very boring and things that you already know, right? Things that your grandmother told you growing up. It's eat your vegetables first, make sure you load up your plate with some of the good stuff and less of the treat stuff. And so there's nothing all that sexy about good nutrition. It's things that you already know. I think we get so caught up in so much of the flashiness, and frankly, it's because people have to run businesses and make money and draw your attention one way or another. And so at the end of the day, right, we go back to the good farming kind of things. What's in season, what's good, what looks fresh, what tastes good. Add a lot of colors to the plate. Eat as many plants as you can.
You'll never go wrong.
And you're gonna be, you're by and large you're gonna be fine. Obviously, everybody has specific situations with their health parameters and those kinds of things, and you can work with your providers on those things. But generally speaking, it's a lot less complicated than they want us to think it is.
That was awesome, Dr. Jain. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I think we're going to shift gears a little bit, and then we'll have Katie take the head now,
Okay.
and you can lead us into your fancy discussion.
Yeah, so, I'm really happy to have Dr. Jain here today. It's very validating to have one of our Griffin doctors here with me. If you've been following us along, again, my background is not so much as a nutritionist, but more as a gardener and a farmer, and being affiliated with a couple of farms in the area. And we've kind of rotated different subjects as we've gone through the seasons here, and summertime is a great time to be thinking about increasing your fiber because of the plentiful amounts of fruits and vegetables. And we are really lucky here in Connecticut to have such a wide variety. Being associated with a farm that distributes a weekly farm share from spring through fall, I thought this was also an opportunity in talking about fiber to talk about radishes, because one of the things I see a lot of our local growers growing, but not in the supermarket, is the radish. And there's a couple reasons for that. So there are hundreds of varieties. I happen to have French breakfast radishes here with me today. They're like this beautiful white to pink coloring. This bunch is a little on the small side, but the sizes, as we've probably seen, can vary from the little round cherry radishes that we sort of associate maybe with our childhood or nostalgia, to the daikon radish, which can be as large as a large zucchini. Black radishes, green meat radishes, those are kind of the medium, but there are so many different kinds. Excuse me. And our farmers love to grow them for a variety of reasons. Number one is they grow really fast. In New England, when we can have a lot of variation in the temperatures, especially in spring and fall, so on those bumpers of the season, when we're not in the heat-loving crops, radishes are a great filler and complement to some other things that are growing. They're naturally pest resistant. I'll get to that in a second. But one of my favorites, if you'll see on the slide here, is this watermelon radish, which has like a light whitish green skin on the outside. I might have even featured them here before. I've done many of these, so I'm losing track now on some of the ingredients that I've used. I typically see these from our local farms in the fall. They have a wonderful mild flavor, and they are absolutely gorgeous when you slice them over because they're that pink on the inside. So it resembles what you see when you cut open a watermelon. Green skin, a little bit of white rind, and that beautiful pink flesh on the inside. They don't take a lot of space to grow. So if your gardening space is very limited, if you're growing in a community garden, if you're living in a condo and you're growing something in your pots on your deck, radishes are a great thing. You can grow them by themselves. You can mix them in with your lettuce, but super easy and a very quick turnaround. They're also naturally pest resistant. So that's why it's great to plant them like alongside your lettuce, because they're going to resist some of the bugs that love to come along and eat those other leafy greens that you'll be growing at the same time. And of course you can eat the entire thing. So I don't know about you all, but I grew up seeing a lot of people only eat the bulb of the radish and throwing the greens away. And one of the things that we've been talking a lot about here is like using the entire plant. So this is another perfect example of getting that fiber in. And I'll talk about this in a second when we start making our recipe here, but radishes are going to have a huge spectrum of flavor, and some of them can be very mild. Some of them will have that sort of inherent, just natural little pepperiness to them. Some of them can get quite spicy, but when you do cook them, it will mellow that spiciness and really bring out the sweet side. And that's something that like roasting can do. So if you get that from the greens, another thing like cooking them, adding them to a soup, we were talking about soup earlier, even in summertime, is a great way to use up those greens if they're too spicy for you or too fibrous to just put in your salad. So adding them to your stir fry or to your soup is a great way to use those greens. These are just some different ways and suggestions in addition to how we're using our radishes here today. So one of my favorites, particularly when I get these with my farm share or at a farm stand or farmer's market in the fall, is adding them to the other root crops that we're getting. So a lot of times we're getting sweet potatoes, carrots, red and white potatoes, and adding your radishes to your root mix and roasting them in the oven, or just roasting the radishes by themselves, right? Really wonderful way, again, to mellow that flavor and bring out their sweetness and incorporate that wonderful fiber. Do a quick pickle, right? So I've got some sliced really thin here today, and I'm going to be adding these to our corn salad. And doing a quick pickle, even if you have your favorite pickle, whether it's a dill pickle or a bread and butter pickle, and you've got that jar of brine left over at the end, save that brine, because if you really like it, you can use that for a lot of things. Radishes included, carrots, dill beans, even zucchini slices. So don't throw away that brine when you're done with your favorite jar of pickles. Slice them if you're a traditionalist and you like cucumber salad or cucumber and tomato salad, throw in some radishes. Now you're going to have a different color thrown in there, and again, that's going to broaden the spectrum of both nutrients and fiber that you're getting. If you're an air fryer enthusiast, making vegetable chips is a great way to get like a crunchy snack in. I don't know about you all, but I really have these cravings, especially on hot days, for something crunchy and something salty. So doing some veggie chips in the air fryer is a fun way to use up your radishes as well. And then one of the last ones is adding them to your salsa. So we all think about salsa as being very traditional. We are not demoing this recipe here today, but I saw this and couldn't resist sharing it with you. And those of you on camera get to see. So we've got this amazing salsa that I made, no tomatoes at all. This is just some sweet red peppers, some cucumber, which again, very seasonal, some fresh mango, cilantro, lime, and some chopped up radishes. So a great way, again, you're getting all the colors, which means you're getting a benefit of the nutrients, and you're getting the fiber as well from all of these.
Katie, can I ask a question?
Yeah,
I came
please.
into this hearing something about brine left over from pickles and radishes. So are you saying that I can take sliced radishes and put them into the brine?
Yes, absolutely.
Would they need to sit a certain amount of time?
So generally what we recommend on doing a quick pickle is like 4 to 5 days is probably the minimum. Yeah, but just slice them up, put them in that brine, stick them in your fridge, and after a few days, yeah.
That does sound really. I'm I love pickles.
Yes.
Not the bread and butters. I have to be honest. The traditional.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm same way here. I like
kosher
sour
dills. Yeah. But I gotta try that.
And there is, I think, some old science about having the vinegar-based stuff, especially when it's hot out, of it quenching your thirst.
Yeah.
That's
well, and
that's true.
fermentation in general, right?
Yes.
Like we love fermented foods. We love adding fermented products as balancing out with diet, and so certainly pickling
And
is.
we
is
did
an
a
important
fermentation discussion here
We
some
did,
months back.
Yeah.
And and the feedback was awesome from that.
Yes. So one of the other ways I like to use my radishes, again, this is usually at the end of the summer when I'm getting cabbage, carrots, beets. Oftentimes there's radishes in there. Maybe it's not all of those ingredients, but here is some fermented cabbage that also includes some beets, some carrots, and radishes. So this is another example of doing a home ferment where again you're getting that benefits of the to the gut microbiome, and you're getting all of those different fiber elements from those different foods as well.
I'm curious to the folks who are here, who's had cooked radishes before?
Yeah.
I mean, it's less commonly seen, right? We think of radishes, I think we see them as garnishes and things like that.
Right.
I mean, I don't think people think to roast a radish or cook it or throw it in their stir fry or do all these things. And I love that peppery bite because now you're adding flavor without adding sauces and bottled things and packaged things and sugary things and a bunch of additives. You're bringing flavor from the ingredient itself.
Yes. Yeah. I do like to, if I'm getting radishes in the spring when I'm getting a heavy green infusion, like cooking greens from my farm share. So oftentimes before it gets too hot, we're getting kale, we're getting broccoli, we're getting chard. And I do like a quick saute of those. I will definitely slice my radishes thin and just throw them in. And again, they don't have to cook all the way through. Gives you a little bit of crunch, gives you a little bit of flavor, and just adds some diversity to your dish. And the last thing I just wanted to share to round out this whole discussion about fiber is one of the great questions we had is like how much, right? When we think about adding these foods, like again, there's sort of this perception that you need to make big changes, but I wanted to share this with you because this is a perfect example of if you look at the quantities given here, you can see that just by making small changes or including small amounts, you're going to be getting lots more fiber. So just from the 3 items on the left side of the menu, which is breakfast, a snack, and lunch, this is already meeting that daily recommended amount. So hopefully this gives you a sense of like, I don't need to make big changes, or I don't need to eat big quantities of something in order for it to be beneficial for your stomach, your gut, your stools, and all of those things. So it's an example just to show you, like, you see these quarter cup, half a cup, it can be small amounts. It doesn't need to be a large amount. All right, anything else to add there? Or are we
Yeah,
good?
I think that's great. Every day, you know, when I start my conversation about fiber with folks, they'll be like, no, I eat a salad every day. And that's wonderful. I support that. Just through, you know, lettuces and a few things. It's really hard. If I don't remember the number exactly, but like if you're just eating heads of romaine or iceberg lettuce, you're going to be eating it until, you know, you're going to outdo every rabbit in town before you reach your fiber goals. And this is where that I keep talking about different types of plants. The more variety you're bringing in, the more of those numbers are going up. I didn't even start talking about beans and legumes because then we're off to the races. And now I've really hit my favorite topic in the world. So it's just that. I mean, I told you to simplify it. My take-home simplification message is add more plants. I don't want you to take things out. I don't want you to do this and that. Just add more plants in a variety of different ways, nuts, seeds, beans, fruits, veg, grains, everything. And over time, that's just going to increase on its own. Yeah.
And
all right.
That's a great point. And I think on Dr. Jane's point, we'll do another session here specifically on plant forward. Using more plants into the diet, and probably easier ways than most people think to introduce them. I think some people have this fear, oh, it's going to be too costly, oh, well, I can't do this, or there's always these what ifs or this, and we want to kind of set it straight. There's a lot of simple choices that you can make to get that to happen. So
yeah, and oftentimes, yes, it's less expensive and not more expensive.
Correct.
Right. All right, so having said that, in addition to coming and sharing this salsa with you today, has anybody tried this? What are you guys thinking? Yeah, okay. Can you taste the pepper from the radish, or no? Does it kind of?
I tasted the radish.
But it's not overbearing.
No.
It's a nice blend. Okay. Did anybody try the sauerkraut yet? Because I want to make sure you guys get a chance to try that. Okay. So I have two things. One is just a basic salad, right? We're going to incorporate in our salad. Again, I've got some French breakfast radishes here that I have sliced up. I want to make sure and add those. And again, how you cut those, entirely up to you. I've also got some shredded carrot here. Again, great source of fiber. And I'm using green leaf lettuce here. I have to give a little shout out to my friends over at Massaro Community Farm in Woodbridge, growing some amazing produce there. They are primarily a vegetable farm, but the one fruit that they do organically is strawberries. So I got the last of the strawberries before it got too hot and strawberries were all done. So I'm going to add some strawberries. I love your thought about adding strawberries and blueberries to salad, so I'm going to add those. Interestingly enough, so as we were prepping for today, I stopped in a couple of our local grocery stores. So around here, we have Stop and Shop, we have Big Buy, of course, Market 32. I actually did not find radishes in the grocery store. So they were at the local farm stand. They were in our farm share. I didn't have a chance to ask somebody, why are you not selling these? But clearly, like, as we're seeing what is offered through grocery stores can often be very different than what we get from a farmer's market, from our local farm producers, or a small regional market that is featuring stuff within our area. And we just have to remember that when we are buying these items that are seasonally fresh, we're getting the peak amount of nutrients that are coming from those things, but we're also supporting those open spaces being in our community. We're supporting those jobs of people working on those farms. And let me tell you, when we're all inside here on a hot day, I have a lot of appreciation for the people that are out there growing and harvesting this food. So wonderful strawberries, wonderful carrots from the farm, lettuce, our radishes. I'm going to add some cucumber as well and some pumpkin seeds. And the other addition to this, as Dr. Jain was saying, getting that additional fiber with some of those whole grains. I mean, yes, protein is great. That's kind of my go-to in the summertime, is doing a salad with some protein on top. It could be a leftover piece of fish that I made for dinner last night, but it's really good cold. But for this particular salad, I like and prefer some whole grain. And again, based on what you saw in the slides, it doesn't need to be a lot to make that salad more satisfying to you and also get you that fiber intake that you are looking for, right? Which is using those whole grains. It could be some oats that maybe you cooked for breakfast. And let me tell you, oats done as a savory side to your meal, try it out sometime. It's a little pleasant surprise, but again, it could be bulgur, it could be farro. Lentils are a great addition on top of a salad as well, where you're getting your protein and your fiber intake as well. So I'm gonna add all of these ingredients, and then
Katie, I recently tried, you mentioned oats, I recently tried doing some steel cut oats and blended them with some protein and a yogurt mixture. And the difference, I thought they were a little more earthy, like a nutty,
yes,
versus your traditional rolled oats, like your Quaker rolled
yes,
oats, if you will.
Do you want to say something about?
No, but it was great for breakfast.
Yeah,
it definitely helped me.
What I'm gonna say is, and hopefully you've noticed this with your toast transition from kind of white flours to whole grain, is, in the 80s we got this really gross kind of whole grain brown bread and nobody wanted to eat it and it wasn't that nutritious anyway. The whole grains that are available now are much better, but what you'll find is they taste a lot better. And that's what Mike's kind of getting at, is once we start to integrate more of the grain, whether it's through a steel cut oat or these really beautiful nutty farros that you toast a little bit and cook nicely, and trialing all these different things, they taste so much better than kind of the plain over processed or maybe stripped down versions that we get. And so your whole grain toast is more satisfying, but hopefully tastes a little bit better too. And I think that it takes a little bit of time for us to transition some of our flavor profiles and what we get used to. But I think there is more and more available. We're getting better and better ingredients out there. People are demanding better food, from their manufacturers. And guess what? It tastes better and it's better for you. So what Mike was noticing is, I think just that chew of it is a little more satisfying. The flavor is a little more interesting and a little more satisfying. And then there's a lot of versatility. I think there's all that, what Katie's mentioning with using oats for a savory application and things like that, or Mike's blended oats is, you start to think outside of the box. You start to understand how the ingredient functions and how you can use it in different ways. The next step up, Mike, and what I've been playing with more and more is wheat berries. So the whole wheat berry itself, and again, you can use it in a savory or a sweet application, and throw it in the pressure cooker, and life is pretty easy.
Yeah.
And so I think the more you do, the more excited you get about trying the next thing and pushing a little bit further. And it's the same thing with stopping at the farm stand and talking to the farmers. What is that? I've never seen that before. Tell me about it. How did it grow? What does it taste like? How do I use it?
How do I use it is the big thing.
It's kind of that old-fashioned going to the butcher shop and them telling you what cuts and how to cook them. The same applies to your local farmer, and they want to talk to you. They get this is their passion, and so they want to teach you about it and get people excited about it.
They get jazzed up.
The same way Katie does. So I think it feeds on itself. Our excitement, your flavor. You light up talking about steel cut oats. Who would have thought? So
my husband will only eat steel cut oats now.
Yeah,
he's become a steel cut oats.
We had done a thing about herbs, and we had talked about the different things you'll see in your garden, like purslane, all these other things. But there's one, and I don't. Forgive me for not remembering the name, but it was a leafy type of thing that most people think it's a weed. And we had discussed how no, it's really not. It's an herb, and you should be using it more. I see it all the time.
Dandelion greens,
I'm trying to remember which thing that is.
It's okay. But I definitely see it all the time now, and it's crazy how it's just like learning new things.
Yes.
And I've taken purslane and washed it and cut it up and put it in salads, and my kids actually eat it, and they're like, wow, this is pretty cool, Dad.
Purslane is plentiful in the community garden
Yeah.
right now, so yes,
Definitely.
please eat the purslane. Good source of omega-3s for a plant. So you're getting fiber and omega-3s. So with this summer salad, again, add your protein, add your grains, and then I made this ahead of time, following on some of the topics that we've talked about in previous classes. So this is a basic olive oil and lemon dressing. However, I've blended some sardines into this. So the reason I wanted to do that is because, number one, it's a healthy fat and you're getting a really a protein punch from that. Most sardines come in a small tin. It's about 4 ounces, and this is half a tin. They are very soft, so try to get over your perception of there being like bones in these little fish, but they pack a sort of smoky umami flavor. And so adding that, for me, this was the first way I introduced them into my diet, because I kept reading that sardines and mackerel were a great way to get both your protein and healthy fats into your diet. And so before I started putting them on crackers and adding them just right on top of my salad, doing this as a blended dressing was kind of got me over that sort of initial mental barrier that I was trying to get over of eating something that was super soft. But I love the flavor that they add to this. And then again, if you've got your protein on top of this, this all of a sudden makes this a salad that is giving you everything except your grains, right? If you're adding your grains, but have a slice of bread, this is gonna bring all of those aspects of the food pyramid into your meal. On the other side of the menu, the other thing I love doing with radishes and corn this time of year. Did you want to say something?
No,
okay.
You're good.
Okay, is this summer salad, this corn salad. So this is a really simple salad. It is 5 ingredients, which I love. You can see you don't need to, but what I did was, we're seeing lots of corn come into our supermarkets right now. It's going to be super sweet, and it offsets the pepper and crunch of the radishes in a great way. You actually, if you've got really sweet, fresh corn, you do not need to cook it. I did a very quick boil with this, only about 5 minutes, just to make removing the kernels from the cob a little bit easier. But if you didn't do that, totally fine. I'm also going to save these cobs, because if you guys remember when we were talking about broth earlier, corn cobs are incredibly flavorful. I can stick these in the freezer for the next time I'm going to do a stock or any kind of soup and add those, and they will make an amazing stock. So I do not want to throw those away. So I've used 4 ears of corn here, done that quick boil, and then cut them off the cob. And you might have been seeing me earlier just sort of breaking that up after I cut it off with my fingers. And you can add other things to this too. You want to add green onions to this. You want to add some tomato or maybe some sweet pepper, actually, which I brought. But I'm going to keep it really simple today, just to show you how you can have an amazing flavor with just 5 ingredients. So I was slicing really thin. If you have a mandolin, great way to get the radishes really nice and thin for this salad. The other thing I have here is cilantro. Does anybody here have that gene where cilantro tastes like soap to them? You guys all good with cilantro? Okay. There are certain people that when they try to eat cilantro, it has a very funny taste. I personally love it, so I can never get enough. And I'm gonna, I put cilantro in our salsa today, and then I'm also gonna add some to this corn and radish salad. So I'm just gonna chop this finely. And then the only other things I'm going to add are a splash of olive oil. I've got some fresh lime here and a dash of chili powder, salt and pepper if you want. And that's it. Again, I can smell the smell of this as I'm chopping it. I don't know if you guys can smell it, but it smells amazing. Love cilantro. The nice thing I like about both of these dishes is that they can be great sides if you're doing a bigger meal, but they can also be the center of attention or the center of your table this time of year, especially if it's hot out and you don't feel like cooking. So let's see, I'm gonna need a fork. Just
I think my version's going to have avocado too, Katie.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, so that's going to give you a little bit of creaminess. A little bit of olive oil there. Love some fresh lime. If you don't have lime and you have lemon, go ahead and use it. But there is something distinct about lime juice that definitely sets it apart. And I would say it goes really well with the corn and the radish and the cilantro. All right. So I'm going to toss these and then we're going to start to hand these out. Do you guys have any remaining questions about getting our daily fiber intake?
Does it feel doable?
Yeah, that's the big question. Does it feel doable?
Incremental, baby steps is the key, right? Like, I know we talk about this big game and she puts up this great menu, but that's the end goal, right? That's where we're working up to. It has to be step by step and incremental. Otherwise, habits don't stick, right? We can't go all or nothing.
You know, I can relate it back to, we had a summer program here where we brought some of the kids in from one of the schools in Derby. We had around 20 kids, and we prepared crunchy chickpeas for them for a snack, and then we did kale chips that were baked and then just lightly salted with some sea salt. And you know, to see the kids' faces when they see this come out of we gave them box lunches, and instead of the cookie and all the other stuff that you thought would be the snack, it was these things: the crunchy chickpeas and the kale chips. And I have to say, I had a pleasant surprise seeing how many kids smiled when they tasted that chip. Now, probably there was a little bit of salt that caught them, but more importantly, they went home and said to their parents, "I tried a kale chip today."
Yeah, and I tried baked chickpeas.
Just like, you know, we're talking about moderation. You can't expect a kid to go change his whole habit, right? But it has to start somewhere, and I think getting the kids to relay a message back to the parents that they tried something new, and the parent sees that there's interest there, that should be enough to motivate the parents. I mean, because we know, as kids, you're eating what's put in front of you. And a lot of that is, unfortunately, with two parents working or single parent homes, they're eating out of convenience, they're strapped for time. We know those barriers that we face. And, you know, I can relate it to my own son. He's taken a class he's in middle school, and he's taking a class, and he came home and he made, oh my goodness, it was like a pretzel dough or something. And he says, "I know this isn't what you make at work, Daddy." He goes, but taste this. I made this. And he was so proud of his concoction. And he's made some more healthier items since. But the whole point is it has to start, I think, with our youth, with the
That's
kids.
why I used to love hosting field trips at the farm for kids coming from the nearby elementary schools, because most kids are not afraid to try things. They can be pretty adventurous, and I was always pleasantly surprised. I mean, I remember making strawberry beet smoothies for them, incorporating the sweetness of the strawberry and then the beets in there. Again, super heart-healthy food, wonderful color, tons of antioxidants, and you know, you could blend that in a way and in a balanced way where the kids are really loving it. And I used to get to see schools trying out new foods for kids, often that incorporate those healthier ingredients. So it's wonderful that we're starting to think, you know, beyond the basics. So hopefully you guys can see this beautiful color, and you're going to get to taste it now. I just love these. So please enjoy. Don't turn away from radishes the next time you see them at the farm stand.
All I can think of is, oh, the lowly radish at this point.
Elevating the radish. Yeah. All right.
So I think if anyone has any other questions for
Please,
Katie or Dr. Jane, we're going to sign off from our live stream at this point. Thank you for being here in person. Thank you for watching, whoever was on there watching. Please stay tuned. We will follow up with another series, of course. Our healthy eating series. We will have more events coming up. We try to do 1 or 2 a month. And you can find these on our website, griffenhealth.org and /events, where we list our classes and, of course, things that we're doing from our teaching kitchen up in Oxford, Connecticut. So thank you again. Thank you, Dr. Jane, for coming today. And, of course, thank you to Katie, as always. And we were going to be signing off. Have a great night.
This is where we get to eat.